All right, today we are diving into one of the most foundational and honestly, one of the messiest family stories you'll ever hear. We're talking about Jacob, his wives, and the absolutely chaotic origins of the 12 tribes of Israel. I mean, this story is just packed with deception, jealousy, and some serious heartbreak. So you've got to wonder, how in the world did a nation's destiny emerge from a family feud this dysfunctional? That's the big question. Let's get into it. So our story kicks off with Jacob. Now, you might remember, as a young man, Jacob was quite the trickster himself. But now, the tables are about to turn. He's the one who's about to get played, and it is a perfect example of cosmic irony. Okay, so Jacob shows up at his uncle Laban's place, and he just falls head over heels for his cousin Rachel. He's so in love that he agrees to work for Laban for 7 long years just for the right to marry her. And the text says his love was so great, those 7 years felt like only a few days to him. But his uncle Laban, he's got other plans. On the wedding night, under the cover of darkness and a thick veil, Laban pulls a switcheroo. He sends in his older, less favored daughter, Leah, instead of Rachel. Jacob wakes up the next morning married to the wrong woman. I mean, can you even imagine the shock? It must have been absolutely staggering. And here is where the irony just hits you like a ton of bricks. Remember, this is the same Jacob who put on animal skins to trick his own blind father, Isaac, and steal his brother's blessing. Now, he's the one who's been tricked by his father-in-law, all because of a veil. It's a clear case of what goes around comes around, a kind of divine measure-for-measure justice. But even inside this incredible human deception, you can see a deeper purpose at work. Theologian Gordon Wenham points out something really powerful here. He says that through this very trick, the unloved, marginalized sister, Leah, gets elevated. She's about to become a key player in a plan so much bigger than her own family's drama. So Jacob does eventually get to marry Rachel too, but the damage is done. Laban's deception has basically lit a fuse on a powder keg, and it ignites this painful, bitter rivalry between two sisters who are now co-wives in a home just torn apart by jealousy. And the household is just split right down the middle. On one side, you've got Leah. She's fertile, she's having kids, but all she really wants is the love of her husband. And on the other side, you've got Rachel. She has Jacob's love, but she's tormented because she can't have children. And you have to understand, in that culture, a woman's entire identity and security was wrapped up in her sons. So this wasn't just about love, this was about survival. So Leah starts having sons, and each name she picks is like a heartbreaking plea for her husband's affection. First comes Reuben, which means, see, a son, as in, maybe now Jacob will love me. Then Simeon, which means heard, because she feels like God has heard her misery. Then Levi, attached, hoping, just hoping, her husband will finally feel attached to her. But then something changes. With the birth of her 4th son, Judah, her whole perspective shifts. Her focus moves from desperately trying to earn her husband's love to just offering praise to God. It is a huge turning point for her. It's this moment of surrender. Rachel, though, sees her sister's success, and she is just consumed by envy. The rivalry escalates into what you can only call a baby race, where children basically become pawns in a battle for status. Rachel gets so desperate, she gives her handmaid, Bilhah, to Jacob to have kids for her. And of course, Leah immediately fires back by doing the same thing with her handmaid, Zilpah. Now, you'd think this chaotic, desperate competition would just end in disaster. And in some ways it does, but it also has an absolutely astonishing result. Out of all this brokenness, a family tree starts to grow, one that is going to change the course of history forever. And you can just see the crazy back-and-forth pattern laid out right here. Leah gets an early lead with 4 sons. But then Rachel, not to be outdone, brings in her maid Bilhah, who has 2. So Leah counters with her maid Zilpah, who also has 2. Then Leah herself has 2 more. And finally, after years and years of agonizing waiting, Rachel conceives and gives birth to Joseph. Now at this point, that's 11 sons. And later, a 12th son, Benjamin, will be born to Rachel, who tragically dies in childbirth. But the number is set. When you add it all up, the total number of sons born from this tangled, painful, rivalrous family is 12. And that number is no accident. Because these aren't just any sons. We're looking at the future patriarchs. Every single name on this list is going to become the head of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. The very foundation of a nation is being laid, piece by messy, complicated piece. Okay, so that brings us to the most important part of this whole story. How do we make sense of this? How could a divine blessing possibly come out of so much human brokenness? Where is the purpose in all this chaos? And here's the thing you have to get. This story was never meant to be a manual for the perfect family. Not even close. It's a raw, honest look at incredibly flawed people. The real hero of the story isn't Jacob or Rachel or Leah. It's God's incredible, unwavering faithfulness to his promises, even when the people involved are making a total mess of things. The scholar Derek Kidner puts it perfectly. He says all this chaos, the jealousy, the deceit, the rivalry, it actually ends up highlighting God's amazing ability to bring order and purpose and blessing right out of the middle of human conflict. And Walter Brueggemann really just nails the central paradox. He says Jacob's family embodies this incredible idea, divine blessing emerging not in spite of human weakness, but through it. That's a stunning thought, that our flaws aren't always obstacles to a bigger plan. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? The foundation of an entire nation was built through deception, favoritism, and bitter jealousy. It wasn't built in spite of all that brokenness. Instead, God somehow wove all that human weakness into the very fabric of his story. Which really leaves us with a pretty deep question for ourselves, doesn't it? If a nation's destiny could be forged in the fire of such a flawed, messy family, what does that teach us about the potential for purpose to be found in our own imperfect lives and our own messy stories?